Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to English Stories with Elina. I'm so happy you're here today. In this video, I'm going to share a beautiful love story about Emily and John, a poor village girl and a rich city boy who fall in love against all odds. It's a story full of emotion, challenges, and hope. And the best part? You'll improve your English while enjoying this heartwarming tale. So sit back, relax, and let's begin our story together. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village surrounded by rolling hills and whispering trees, there lived a young woman named Emily. She was 20 years old, with sparkling blue eyes that seemed to hold the sky inside them, and golden hair that shimmered like sunlight. Emily came from a poor family, but she was rich in love. She lived in a small wooden house with her parents and younger brother. They didn't have much, just enough to get by, but they shared laughter, kindness, and warmth every day. Emily loved to read. Books were her escape, her window to the world beyond the village. While others worked in the fields or tended to animals, Emily could often be found sitting under the old oak tree near her house, a book in her hands and dreams in her heart. She imagined castles, adventures, and cities filled with music and light. But most of all, she dreamed of a life where love conquered all, where hearts were free, and where the world didn't judge people by their wealth. One sunny morning, as birds sang in the trees and the village slowly came to life, Emily walked to the market to buy a few vegetables for her mother. The market was bustling with noise, sellers calling out, children running, and the smell of bread filling the air. While looking at apples, she bumped into someone. As she turned to apologize, her eyes met his, dark, gentle, and curious. His name was John. Tall, well-dressed, with dark hair and a soft smile, John looked like someone from the stories Emily read. He helped her pick up the apples that had fallen, and they began to talk. To Emily's surprise, John wasn't proud or distant. He was kind, thoughtful, and interested in what she had to say. He told her he was the son of a wealthy landowner, but he didn't like showing off. He preferred quiet conversations and walks in nature. That day, they didn't talk long, just a few minutes. But something magical happened. A connection began, something gentle and true. Over the next few weeks, they met often at the market. Sometimes by chance, sometimes on purpose. They laughed, shared stories, and walked together through the village fields. Their bond grew with every step, every smile, every glance. Emily, shy but full of emotions, began writing in her journal about John. At first, just small thoughts. He smiled today, or he likes to read too. But slowly, the pages filled with longer entries, her hopes, her worries, and her growing feelings for him. One day, John gave her a folded piece of paper with a poem he had written. It was simple but heartfelt, about sunlight on her hair and the calmness in her voice. Emily blushed as she read it, holding it close to her chest when no one was watching. She wrote back, unsure but brave, thanking him and writing a small poem of her own. That was the beginning of their letters. Short notes left under a stone near the river, folded pages slipped into books at the market, tiny pieces of paper carrying big feelings. Through these letters, their friendship deepened, and something stronger began to bloom, something tender and full of promise. Emily had never known such joy. In a world that often reminded her of what she didn't have, these letters made her feel seen, valued, and truly loved. And though neither of them had said the words out loud yet, they both knew something beautiful was growing between them. As the days turned into weeks, Emily and John grew inseparable. They met often, under the big willow tree by the river, along the narrow path between the fields, or near the quiet garden behind the village chapel. Sometimes they spoke for hours, and other times they simply walked in silence, their hearts speaking louder than words. The letters they exchanged became deeper and more personal. Emily poured out her dreams, her fears, and the love she had kept hidden for so long. John wrote about his struggles, his desire to live a life beyond wealth and duty, and how Emily had changed his world. One golden evening, as the sun set behind the hills and painted the sky in soft shades of pink and gold, John took Emily's hand. "Emily," he whispered, "I love you. I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. She smiled, her heart full. "Yes, John," she said, "I love you too, with all my heart." They embraced, the wind gently dancing around them like a blessing from the heavens. It was the happiest moment of their lives, but happiness, like the seasons, can change too quickly. When John told his parents about Emily, expecting joy, he was met with anger. His mother's face grew cold. "You cannot marry a poor village girl," she said sharply. "She is not one of us." John's father was no different. "Think of our name, our land, our future. You need a wife who matches your status, someone from a rich, respected family." John stood tall, his heart beating fast. "But I love her. Emily is kind, strong, and good. That matters more than money." His parents were unmoved. "If you marry her, we will not support you," his father warned. "You'll be on your own." John left their home that day with a heavy heart, but a strong will. He believed in love, in their love, but he knew the road ahead would not be easy. Emily heard about what had happened. When John came to see her, his eyes tired but loving, she knew the truth before he spoke. "They will never accept us," John said quietly, "but I don't care. I'll leave everything behind for you." Emily's heart broke. She loved him so deeply, but she couldn't let him lose his family, his future, everything he had worked for. That night, she sat by candlelight and wrote him a letter, perhaps the hardest letter she'd ever written. "My dearest John, I love you more than words can say, but love should not destroy. I do not want to be the reason you lose your family. Maybe it's better if we let each other go, not because we want to, but because we must." John's reply came quickly, written with trembling hands. "Emily, I will always love you. No matter what happens, you will always be in my heart. If this is goodbye, know that I will never forget the days we shared. You are my first and last love." They met one last time by the river. No words could fix what the world had broken. They held each other tightly, tears streaming down their faces, their hearts heavy with pain. Though they promised to stay friends, they both knew that part of their hearts would remain lost forever. As they walked away in opposite directions, the sky above them darkened, not with storm, but with sorrow. Two souls in love, torn apart by a world that still valued gold more than grace. But deep within, they both knew. This was not the end of their story. Time, as always, moved forward. After saying goodbye to Emily, John left the village and went to the city. It was a world of noise, tall buildings, and unfamiliar faces, so different from the quiet fields and warm smiles of home. But John kept going. He found work in a trade company starting from the bottom. He worked long hours, saved every coin, and learned everything he could. He was determined to build a life on his own, not with his family's wealth, but with his own hands. In the evenings, after the noise of the city faded, John would sit by his small window, take out his pen, and write to Emily. He wrote about his work, his new life, and the memories he still carried of her. Every word was filled with longing and love. Back in the village, Emily continued her life with quiet strength. She helped her parents on their small farm, cared for her younger brother, and offered kindness to everyone around her. But every time she saw the postman walking down the road, her heart skipped a beat. She would run to the door, hoping for one of John's letters. She replied to every one of them, carefully writing by the light of an old lantern. She shared stories of the village, of her family, and of her thoughts. Though far apart, they still lived in each other's hearts. Their letters became lifelines, filled with laughter, honesty, and hope. They didn't speak of love directly anymore, but it was in every line, every memory, every wish. They wrote about the future, not as a shared dream, but as something they both hoped might still cross paths. Despite the distance and the time that passed, their bond remained unbroken. Though their hands were far apart, their hearts were still close, held together by ink, paper, and an unshakable love. Years passed. The city changed John. He had grown wiser, stronger, and more determined. Through hard work, he rose in his company, earned respect, and saved enough to build a stable life. But despite all his success, something was always missing. Each day as he walked home under the city lights, he thought of Emily, of the girl with golden hair and kind eyes who once waited by the river. One spring morning, with a heart full of hope, John returned to the village. The air smelled of blossoms, and the same hills that once witnessed their love stood quietly as if waiting. He walked past the old market, down the familiar paths, until he reached Emily's home. When Emily opened the door and saw John standing there, time stood still. Her heart skipped, and for a moment, it felt like no years had passed at all. "John," she whispered. John smiled. "I'm back. I missed you, Emily. I never stopped loving you." They sat in the garden, under the same willow tree, where they once dreamed of a future. John told her everything, his life in the city, his work, his struggles. Then, with quiet strength, he said, "I no longer depend on my parents. I've built my life on my own. And I came back for you." Emily listened, her heart overwhelmed with emotion. She had never stopped loving John, but she had also learned to live without him. She had grown strong, independent, and wise. And now he was here, offering her the dream they once lost. But doubt crept into her heart. "John, what if things go wrong again?" she asked softly. "What if your parents still try to keep us apart?" John reached for her hand. "They made their choice, but I've made mine too. I choose you. I've waited years for this moment. I'm not leaving without you." Emily looked into his eyes and saw the same kindness, the same passion. He hadn't changed. He had only become more of the man she always believed he could be. Her doubts melted slowly. She wasn't that shy village girl anymore. She was a woman who had endured pain, loss, and loneliness. But she still loved John. She always had. A few weeks later, under a sky full of stars and lanterns, Emily and John were married in a small ceremony at the village chapel. The whole village came to celebrate. There were simple flowers, heartfelt vows, and laughter that echoed through the hills. Emily wore a handmade dress, and John stood proudly beside her. They didn't need gold, grand halls, or the approval of the world. They had each other, and that was enough. John's parents didn't attend. They refused to accept the marriage, still bound by pride and status. But John no longer felt sadness. He had made peace with their choice. His heart was finally where it belonged. After the ceremony, they stood together on the hill where they had first watched the sunset years ago. Emily leaned her head on John's shoulder and whispered, "We made it." John smiled. "Yes, and this time, nothing can break us." They had chosen love over fear, heart over heritage. And with that, a new chapter of their life began, one built not on wealth or status, but on a love that had survived time, distance, and doubt. After their simple but beautiful wedding, Emily and John packed their few belongings and moved to the city to begin a new chapter. Life wasn't always easy, but they faced every challenge hand in hand. John continued working in his company, while Emily started a small bookshop, a quiet place filled with stories, much like her own. Together, they built a cozy home, filled not with riches, but with laughter, warm meals, and love in every corner. They shared morning coffee, evening walks, and late-night talks about everything and nothing. Every day was a blessing, even the hard ones, because they faced them side by side. In time, their family grew. They had 2 children, bright, kind, and full of curiosity. Emily and John raised them with love, teaching them to be brave, to follow their hearts, and to always be kind. In the corner of their bedroom, they kept a wooden box. Inside it were the letters, hundreds of them, written over the years. Letters of joy, pain, longing, and hope. One rainy afternoon, their daughter opened the box and began reading. Her eyes filled with wonder as she discovered the story of her parents' love, the kind of love that endured every storm. That box became a symbol of their legacy, a quiet reminder that real love takes patience, strength, and faith. Years passed. Emily and John grew old together. Their hair turned gray, their steps slowed, but their hearts remained young. One peaceful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, John picked up a pen and wrote one final letter to Emily. It wasn't long, but every word carried the weight of their journey. As the camera pans over scenes of their life, walking through fields, holding hands, rocking their grandchildren, a gentle voice reads, "True love never dies. It only grows stronger with time. And ours, it will live on in every story, every smile, and every heartbeat that came from it." And with that, their story became eternal, etched not just in paper, but in the hearts of all who believed in love.